Dear friends, on this day that we commemorate the Lord's Passion, a day that we should call a bad Friday, but it is not bad. Indeed, it is Good Friday for two obvious reasons. Jesus saved humanity by revealing the self-giving love that is hidden in the inner life of God. And we think about it, life is always lived in ironies and paradoxes. Our passion reading today started with an irony. In John's Gospel, chapter 1, verse 4, referring to Jesus, it says, "In him was life, and this life is the light of the world, the light that darkness cannot overcome." And here is Judas, who spent 3 years with the Lord. He was in the presence of light, the true light, but he moved away from light and plunged himself into darkness. And now he needs an artificial light to search for Jesus. He's coming at night with his cords, with lantern and torches. All the while he was with the light, he did not see the light clearly. He plunged himself into darkness. And we think about Peter, why his master was exhibiting the attitude of innocence. Peter was exhibiting that attitude of fear, and he denied his master. We are coming back to Judas and Peter in a moment. Let us focus a bit on the cross. In John chapter 6, verse 15, when Jesus realized that the people were coming to force him to make him a king, he withdrew to the mountain. He could have taken that opportunity to become a king, but no. His enthronement is being lifted up on the cross. He is the Lord who reigns from the wood of the cross. Jesus is being lifted up. The cross has become the place, the time, and the hour of the revelation of God, God's love, and by means which the Son of God is glorified. And we think about the cross is an instrument of mockery, an instrument of torture, an instrument of humiliation employed by Persians and Romans. But that instrument has become the instrument of glorification, the instrument of exaltation. Through the cross, therefore, we have been glorified by Jesus. Fulfilling the first reading, we are told, "He shall be raised on high and greatly exalted." Through this exaltation, Jesus reconciles us, he justifies us, and he saves us. By justifying us, he reconciles us to God, and equally sanctifies us by making us holy, by making us candidates of heaven. He is our salvation. Like the first reading says, by his stripes we have been healed. In the second reading in the letter to the Hebrews, it says, Jesus learned obedience from what he suffered, and he has become the source of eternal salvation for all who obey him. As the high priest, therefore, he has become the mediator who brings God to humanity through his incarnation and takes humanity back to God through the cross by opening heaven to all of us. In Luke chapter 23, verse 43, the two thieves that were nailed to Jesus, Jesus said to the one on the right when he said, "Remember me, O Lord, in your kingdom." And Jesus said, "This very day you shall meet me in paradise." The death of Jesus on the cross paves way for you and I to become candidates and citizens of heaven. Dear friends, Jesus has shown us who God is and who we are called to be. Yesterday, when Father Daniel was preaching, we read the gospel from John's Gospel, chapter 13. And it began with this very verse. Jesus loved his own. He loved them to the end. The expression, the apex, the zenith of that love is the death of Jesus on the cross, when he said, tetelestai in Greek. It means it is finished, mission accomplished. Everything has been resolved. That is the depth of God's love for us. What meaning do we make of all of this, dear friends? The evangelist John refers to Jesus in our gospel reading of today. He was given a drink with the hyssop. And it takes us back into the book of Exodus. Exodus chapter 12, verse 22, where hyssop was used to sprinkle the blood of the Paschal lamb on the doorpost of the Israelite. And Jesus is being sentenced to death at noon. This is the very hour on Passover Eve when the priest begins to slaughter the Paschal lamb within the precincts of the temple. The death of Jesus gives concrete expression to what we read in John's Gospel chapter 1, verse 29. Behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. Jesus is the Paschal Lamb. Our emeritus Pope, Joseph Ratzinger, he remarked, Jesus is the Lamb chosen by God himself. On the cross, he takes upon himself the sin of the world and wipes them away. We note also in the book of Exodus, chapter 12, verse 4 to 6, where it stipulates that no bones of this lamb was to be broken. You remember when the soldiers went back there, they broke the legs of the thieves, but they did not break the leg of Jesus. He was already dead. What happened? The soldier pierced the side of Jesus, and what came out from there? Blood and water. The cleansing water and life-giving blood. The water of baptism and the blood of the Eucharist flowing from the side of Christ will be to nourish the new members of God's community. These waters of baptism that Father Leon will bless on Holy Saturday night will give opportunity for 5 of our own here that will be baptized. Ashley, Aiden Ryan, Eric Ryan, Jamie Ryan, and Gianni Joseph. All of these will be made possible because of the death of Jesus. Dear friends, here is the issue. In the narrative of today, we all might be thinking that Jesus was the one on trial. Jesus wasn't on trial. All of the characters in the narrative of today were the ones on trial. Pilate was on trial. He found Jesus not guilty, but yet he did not give Jesus justice. The crowd was on trial because they chose Barabbas over Jesus. They chose violence over peace. They chose disorder over orderliness. Peter was the one on trial because of fear. He denied his master. Judas was the one on trial. Through his act of his betrayal, he sold his master for a few pieces of silver. And when we look at this story, we can find ourselves also in these characters. The story of Jesus is our own story. In a way, too, we are also on trial. We are on trial. Well, like Pilate, sometimes we brush aside truth in the face of injustice, discrimination, abuse, either at workplaces, in churches, or within our circle of influences, and we do not talk. Like Peter, we are on trial when we express fear out of fear or favor, or sometimes just because we want to be politically correct, we do not say the truth. And equally, like Judas, we are on trial. When you and I allow greed sometimes, selfishness, to take the center of our lives. The story of Jesus is our own story, but it will not end there. Jesus says to us today, in the letter to the Hebrews, that is, Jesus, he sympathizes with our weakness, with our broken humanity. He not only sympathizes with us, he empathizes with us through his love on the cross. He prays for us. Let us be confident, therefore, to approach the throne of mercy, to receive mercy, and to find grace and solace in Him. Let us go back to Judas and Peter. When Judas left the light, when he left Jesus, he went, he did not look back, he didn't come back. But when Peter moved a bit into darkness, when he denied Jesus, he cried. And the grace of God brought him back. And he remained with Jesus. Because he remained with Jesus, he was able to share the joy of resurrection. At this hour, dear friends, Jesus is inviting us to remain with him so that we can equally, on the day of resurrection, share the joy of Easter. Let us remain with Jesus. The Jesus who tells us that he is the source of eternal salvation. Be with me, Lord, when I am in trouble. Be with me, Lord, I pray. Be with me, Lord, when I am in trouble. Be with